room who's a philosopher can give me that argument, please text it to me.
Okay, right. Comment. You want to comment? Yeah? Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I think.
Your name and your
okay, sorry. So my name's Movie. And I'm coming from Bonaire Regency. It's in South Sulawesi.
South Sulawesi. Yep.
Yeah, in Makassar, if you know. All right. So I think it's really interesting because even if I'm single now, but I'm working with people in boarding school, Islamic boarding school, and it faces a lot of problematic issues regarding on students. For example, the youth. For instance, my student really love to make a chaos just because they need attention from the teacher.
Yes.
And I think I just want to see your perspective regarding on the age of the students or the age of the children for the parents who want to drop their children far away from their family or from their home. Because in Indonesia itself, there's so many boarding schools, and even the parents drop their children at the age of 5 or 7, and I think they don't get that kind of the attention, or yes. You mentioned a care about that. I think that's
Thank you.
Okay, I say nothing more.
Okay. Yes, silakan.
My name is Emilia. I'm from Malaysia, Sarawak.
Emilia,
yes. I'm a senior lecturer at University of Malaysia, Sarawak. I'm really interested actually when I read through your synopsis, your abstracts regarding the learn, the trust, learn, and care framework. And myself I'm from counseling background. And when you mentioned about CBT, I think it's something that I really like. Just wondering, do you have this trust, learn, and care intervention for the family, basically? And then what is your focus? Is it like you focus more on the dynamic of the family, or that is extension to the family and community?
Good. I shall answer that later.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Amelia. One more.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Handika Subakti from Medan, North Sumatra, and now I stay in Jakarta. I'm a student of University of Indonesia. Last year, I just conducted a research based on Al-Quran, and I come with conclusion that in the best way to the parenting style in Islam based on Al-Quran is eclectic approach. It means you cannot choose one only authoritative, democratic, or permissive. And I just wondering, in your perspective, if you want to implement TLC, which one is the parenting that is relevant to implement this, or eclectic approach, or we can choose one or another? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Handika. So we have 5 response from Alan. And
that will be later. That will be paid. Yes.
Use TLC to respond.
No. I use Google.
We'll invite Ibu Sukiati, Dr. Sukiati from Medan to present his PowerPoint on the TLC from the gender perspective. Silakan Ibu.
Thank you, Pak Jara. I am Sukiati, one of the lecturers in North Sumatra Islamic University. I'm happy to be here. Moreover, when Pak Alan get many response, so meaning that the audience so curious, curious to know more about this, and this made us more spirit. Okay. My title is Trust, Learn, and Care in Family from Gender's Perspective. What I'm doing here actually is more research. Actually, I'm not going to like unpacking the TLC from the gender's perspective. What I'm doing here is I want to know more focus to what happened actually in family, in some family in Medan. North Sumatra. The background is, we know that trust, learning, and caring is only some of many values that actually should build in family life. And parents, whether it is mother or father, get or have equal responsibility and role in building the values of the family. Parents, as its father and mother, father is male and male, say male, and the mother is female, live with some backgrounds of life, whether it's socially or culturally context. So, gender perspective will see the role as father and the mother roles in their family. Maybe in this case, because this is actually, although I say this is a small research, but so many intervening variables that should include inside, but I cannot do it in small time. It must be continued later after this maybe. So why this is important? Why this must be discussed and done the research is because TLC has a big capital for building the family strength and family endurance. Okay. The objectives of the research that I'm doing is what's actually the role of fathers and mothers relating to the trust in their family, learning in family, and caring in family. Data collecting that I use is questionnaire, observation, and interview. Okay, gender's perspective. This is another problem beside the intervening the variables. For gender perspective has a big perspective, whether it is like say father from some certain culture like Japanese, foreigners, or Malay, or blah blah blah, mother the same. So what I'm doing for this presentation is to see whether from the working fathers and mothers, working parents, and then working fathers and the family from working mothers. So three kinds of family that to be my subject, yeah, my locus of collecting data. Okay. The indicators of the trust, learn and care, actually so many that what are already unpacked. But here, in my whole research, I only take three of indicators. First, quality time, and then the second trust, and the second caring, and the fourth is learn. Each has three items. Each indicator has three items. First, for quality time, like talking each other between in family, eating together, or having weekend together. And then for trust, whether in family, children and the member of family give chance to making own decision, managing own finance, and telling own problem to parents. And then the next one, caring like playing with children together, helping each other, cooking for family. This is my indicator and some item that I already did. And then the learn, like doing homework with parents, involving parents' activity, involving children into two parents' activity, and seeing other people activity to be learning for the children. Okay, subjects are 60 children aged 15 to 18 years from Islamic Senior High School. At the time I took three Islamic Senior High School, Mansatu, yeah, Mansatu means one of the name of the school, and then Mandua, and then the PAB. So these three schools are Islamic Senior High School. 20 children from each age, 20 children I took from working fathers and mothers. So the 20 children I took from the family that the father and the mother work, and then 20 children from working fathers only, and then 20 children from working fathers. Working mothers, the third one. So, just I put it like this, eating at home together. This is one of the item from quality time. So, children from working fathers and mothers answer that they do not eating together at home in daily life. Together means they eating at home, but not together. It's like sitting together in the table or sitting on the floor, like Japanese people doing on the mat, something like that. So, like 45% say no, they don't eat together. They eat at home, but individually. Who are hungry, they go eat. And then this is who say yes, that they always mean, yeah, maybe sometimes not, but often they do eat at home together with the family. It's like 20% about that. And then the rest is sometimes depend on time, depend on that mother or father coming home together, or children also coming home together, or sometimes they like feel okay, let's eat together, or sometimes okay, who are hungry, go in, something like that. The next one, this is from working father. Yeah, please tell me if the time. Yeah, this is from. Sorry. This is from working fathers. From working fathers, the family that only the fathers go to work say that mostly they eat together at home. They eat at home together with the parents. Why? Because mothers usually provide food at home, waiting for the fathers coming home, and children said by the mother, okay, wait your father and let's eat together. So this is one reason of them. The other reason is also said by the children that they respect father. If they don't wait the father, it feels like they don't respect the fathers. Next, for working mothers, this is quality time for the working mothers, family with working mothers, mostly 40% say that although mother works, but they say they eat together at home. Although I say why? Because sometimes some of family have maid to help cooking, but some family say that sometimes mother coming home bringing food, so they can eat together. And sometimes, especially in the time like weekend or holiday, mothers have time to cook by herself. And like 30% and 30%, another 30% say that they don't eat because it depends on time, because if mother tired, they will not do like that. Mother busy, they will not do it. And what about the father? In this context, the father mostly do not help cooking when the mother work. Usually they use maid pembantu ya, maid to help cooking, or mother's cooking by herself. Okay. In indicator trust, working fathers I do think like whether fathers or mothers trust the children make their own decision to build their trust in their life. Working in family with working fathers and mothers say that they like the same percent say no and yes, and there is some time. Why? Because when mother have time and father have time together, they usually discuss with the children, and sometimes they say no and sometimes they say yes. What I did is actually first, why I can assume this, we can assume this because what I did is after giving them the questionnaire and then I asked why, and then I have a small interview with the children so they can answer why the mother and father do something, do like that. Okay, the next one. Whether children have trust to make their own decision from family working fathers, the working fathers family, mostly they said the children have trust from their fathers. Why? Because everything should go to father's decision. Okay, what do you say, father? Okay, let him. And the mother say, what the mother just follow. The mother just follow what father say because the father like have superiority at home because they have work, because he has work. He made money. He earned the money. So usually children will follow what father says. Okay, the next one. From working mother's family. Yeah, sorry. Mostly answer that mothers not giving trust to children to make their own decision. Why? Because usually mother protect children more than fathers. Mothers more feeling anxiety, feeling afraid to the children to make their own decision. Okay, to indicators care, I use question whether fathers and mothers help each other at home. In family with working fathers, family of working fathers and mothers, mostly answer father and mother help each other in home, in household working at home, whether it is in the kitchen or whether it is outside the kitchen like gardening or what else. While from family with working fathers only, mostly children answer fathers and mothers sometimes only help each other. And from working mothers family, okay, mostly answer father and mother help each other. This is actually interesting. Why? Because when mother works outside and father help in the kitchen in some cases, it's interesting because Medan actually is mostly father is from Bataknese clan that usually they are shy to go to the kitchen and help her wife. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. The discussion again. Yeah, this is the interview that I resume, that I make a conclusion. But parents usually busy, so being home late, dinner at office, being tired, everybody eats. So please go eat. This is from what fathers and mothers work. While while the others says that why they do eat together, yeah, family tradition, we to cook. Okay, I did already say that before. So let's go to the conclusion. Conclusion? Okay, when dealing with working fathers and mothers, I conclude that give less attention, more trust, less care, and fair learning from what I already collect, data collection, yeah? When dealing with working fathers, give more trust, less care, and less learn. And the third, when dealing with working mothers, give more attention, less trust, more caring, and more learning. I think this is my presentation. I say thank you, and I have your listen, maybe suggestion.
Thank you.
Making this paper better.
Yeah, look how related the first presentation and the second presentation. She tries to use the TLC framework, yeah, for working fathers and mothers to their families. Okay, I would like to invite 3 questions to Ibu Sukiati, Professor Hans.
Yes.
Yeah, can start.
Yes, thank you very much for this lecture, which was listened and showed, I think, that's pretty clear that it's best for the family if only the father works. And would you agree with me that obviously social reasons are very important for making families work? Because, I mean, today, for many people, it's not possible that only the father works because they have no money. And this is a thing which goes beyond the things which you said. I think simply the fact that in Indonesia, most people are very poor, that destroys families and destroys the working of families. And it would be the duty of the state and of the state which obeys Islamic values to care for socially for the people and to care that the wealth of this country is more equally shared. And this would be a very important point here for Islamic parties. Islamic parties here, it seems to me, speak only about extramarital sex and going to the mosque. But Islamic values are values of solidarity and of social justice. I don't know any party in Indonesia which puts social justice and solidarity with other people at the first place. And I think this society needs in order to make families work.
Yeah. Got it. And then the second response, if we have. If no, we can just proceed to the third speaker. Who Andrea again?
Others first.
Yeah.
And me the last. No one? Thank you. Ibu, Ibu Sukiati, congratulate for you and I support you for your title, Perspective Gender. And sure, my comment to your presentation after conclusion is additional to whom recommendation your research, especially for your academy, for community, for parents, for policymakers, especially you live in Medan, maybe for local government, because perspective gender to make how to harmonization in a family between mother, father, to bring children for what's title? CLC, yes? CLC. So not only stop here, but I believe that ending is just the beginning for you. Yes, the last for this session, you must beginning to complete it, and then cover it for like reference, especially for children reference. That's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Andriani. now let's proceed due to the limitation of the time. We would like to proceed to the third speaker, Ibu Naimah from Yogyakarta.
Ibu Naimah ya?
Suaranya dia.
Saya putuin. I recognize her, but forget it.
Doesn't show up.
Virus. Second opinion. Pacara. Dan pacara pemain.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
I'm just sorry that I would like to explain my research, but because we have quite limited time, everything has been explained by Prof. Alan about trust, learn, and care, and I would like to show our dearest audience just my problems that discussed in my study about the perspective, trust, learn, and care in perspective, teaching, learning, and activities, and higher education in Indonesia, especially the foundation for inculcating trust, learn, and care in higher education in Indonesia. Let me show you about the problem. Actually, teaching and higher education regarding trust, learn, and care must be internalized to students by lectures, academically and acutely. And the phenomenon of the students are dishonest, disrespectful, and ignorant of others is still often found in Indonesia. Not just only for the students of elementary school, but also some students at university. I've done my research at my university, and because within our audience also often finds that some people, we also ask, often do it. The problems of inculcating trust, learn, and care are part of the duties of responsibilities of lectures. And the problems, I try to define the problems in different parts. The first one, why are the values of trust, learn, and care internalized in lectures in higher education in Indonesia? And the third problem is, what is the right method in inculcate the values of trust, learn, and care for students in higher education in Indonesia? And the last question of mine is, how are the result of inculcating the values of trust, learn, and care for students in higher education in Indonesia? Based on the universal foundations, first, the National Education System Law number 20 of 2003, Chapter 1, Article 1. And the second, the Law of the Republic of Indonesia number 14 of 2005 concerning the teachers and lecturers, Article 69 and Paragraph 2. And concerning the character education, let me limit my time. So let me read my only because I quite limited time. Character is a set of qualities always admired as signs of goodness, wisdom, and moral maturity. And the characters of the characters, goals of character education are able to distinguish them, in order to distinguish, trust them, and care themselves. And the PLC values is to be learned because humans are human rationals. And the implementation of PLC values in everyday life. And everybody should continue to study PLC values in order to understand more about the PLC values and making the PLC values as their characters. And the second one, that the value inculcation methods. What methods would be used? Yeah, in inculcating the PLC values through trust, or modeling, or problem-solving skills, or delivery source, or regulation. And the results, the values can inculcate results in the form of knowing, understanding, skill, generalizations, and characters. I think that's all. The conclusion.
Terima kasih Ibu.
Thank you. Ibu Naimah is from the Faculty of Education who already presented her papers on the legal foundation for the implementation of TLC in Indonesian universities. It's a challenge how to implement this at the uni level, and we will discuss later. If you have respond a question to her, please address it now. Yes.
Yes.
Silakan.
It's very interesting, Ibu Naima, because I think PLC is easy kind of framework to implement. I know it's not easy as I mean it's understanding, but people can understand that without knowing the theoretical, philosophical behind the framework. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, when you introduce this framework to the university's level, I would like to know your mechanism and what was the mechanisms that you applied in introducing to convince the management, and then I think that is very interesting. I think this is something that I can bring home, and I can suggest to the top management at the university level. Thank you.
Thank you, Amalia from Malaysia. One more, Ibu Andriani.
Another first? If no one.
Simple question, yeah?
Yes.
Simple
Only
response.
my question for you.
Yeah, thank you.
How to applicate in teaching learning process? Because you are lecturer. Sure. Reminder that the output higher education must to be good in what's madrasah especially because you are there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you. We note that responses and question. Now we proceed to the last speaker, Muldafar Ahwan from UII Yogyakarta, Private Islamic University in Yogyakarta. Silakan Pak. Can you use the microphone?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
To be easy for me, I want to explain the title in Arabic. هذا بحث علمي عما يتعلق بإبراهيم صلى الله عليه وسلم، لأن هذا النبي الكريم يعلمنا أشياء حتى نفهم على أنه من أفضل الأنبياء. أقول الأنبياء.
He speaks Arabic, but I will try to make a summary of his speech. Because he's the teacher of Arabic, so.
I think it's
Sorry.
no problem.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Ya, nanti saya simpulkan Pak ya, bukan tidak keliru.
هذا الفرق مهم لأن هذا الحياة يحتاج إلى معاملة، يحتاج إلى الأشياء لأن يكون عيش في هذه الدنيا عيشة راضية، عيشة سلامة في الدنيا وكذلك في الآخرة. كما قال الله تعالى في سورة التحريم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا. هذا دليل على أن البيت، على أن الآباء والأمهات لابد أن يربوا أولادهم لأن يكون سليما من عذاب النار في يوم الآخرة.
Okay, wait, Pak. Not to forget. So Pak Muldofar actually explained about how Islam, how the Quran established TLC foundation, theological foundation. He start explaining about Abraham family, right? And the second point is, it is true, it is in the Quran, in Surat At-Tahrim, ya Pak ya, the Tahrim, that in order to build harmony and peace, the Quran insisted that the compassionate, what we call the care to family, should be disseminated through the family first. So Abraham is the role model of all religious tradition, big tradition, to implement the TLC. Is it correct, Pak? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Pak. Simple and clear.
التربية أهم لأول وهلة في البيت، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: إذا أراد الله بأهل بيت خيرا أولا فقههم في الدين. ووقر صغيرهم كبيرهم الثاني، ورزقهم الله الرزق والقسط في نفقاته، وبصر عيوبهم فيتوب بها. هذا دليل على الحجة. إذا أراد الله أن يكون على البيت خير، لأول مرة يعلمهم الدين، علوم الدين، أول الدين يعمل. الثاني الصغير
Respect. Respect. From. Respect.
everything.
And then
الكبير. والثالث نال الرزق من الله وينفق هذا الرزق بالقصد. سبحانه.
Okay, Pak. Wait, Pak. I will
Translate. So Pak Muldofar quoted the Prophet tradition, the Hadith we call it in Arabic. If you want your family be happy, is happy, you should implement 3 things. First, you have to teach your children Islamic tradition, the religion itself, if you want to make your family happy, right? Tafaqquh fiddin, yeah? So understand the Islamic teaching. And the second, the younger should respect to the older among family. There must be a compassionate care, yeah, exactly TLC. And the third is, if you got something from God. Rizqun min Allah. You have to give to others, not just keep for yourself. Caring, Pak, ya? It's a kind of a care. Thank you, Pak. Very clear. Thank you.
Here is Prophet Ibrahim as model. First, Rohi, spiritual. Spiritual.
Oh.
So the Ibrahim is the role model for the deep spirituality.
Bahasa Indonesia juga apa? Ya, saya mudah menangkap.
Ya, nubul akhlak, kedalaman akhlak mulia, kemuliaan akhlak.
Good character.
And second, Isaul Ma'rifah, luasan pengetahuan.
And knowledge. Yeah, you teach your family with knowledge.
Maharat takwiliyah, transformasi, ya, keterampilan transformatif.
Skill, like life skills. You teach your children, your family skills.
Prophet Ibrahim model. Kalau ada Rabbi inni askantu min dzurriyyati biwadin ghairi dzi zar'in inda baitikal mukarram. Ya. Yang pertama itu menempatkan keluarganya di tempat yang dekat Baitullah atau tempat masjid.
Okay, so if you choose the house, please choose the house near the mosque. Mean that the children should go to the mosque, yeah, for worship. That's a part of Ibrahim model, how to teach their children.
And then?
The second, dua itu berdoa, mendoakan untuk kebaikan anak cucunya.
And as a parent, we should pray for the better of our children in the future.
Dan berdoa agar orang-orang yang sudahnya tertarik hatinya untuk mengikuti kebenaran yang dibawanya.
And pray the community, for the community to make them follow the good teaching of the religion.
Bersyukur kepada Allah atas pemberian nikmat padanya.
Okay, last but not least is the thanks, always thanking to God whatever you get. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Pak. Let's give a big applause. Arabic. Yeah. The chair should be able to speak Arabic as well.
Yes.
Also Indonesian and Javanese.
I will answer
But not
all my
Germany.
questions in Arabic.
You have responded to Pak Mudofar, by the way. Yeah, okay. So Handika, please Handika. Okay. You want to ask in Arabic? No, in English, please.
In English, okay.
Yes.
So thank you for the location. So if you talk about Ibrahim, actually, it's very relevant to TLC because one of the ayat in Al-Quran when Ibrahim alayhi salam want to sacrifice Ismail, he asked Ismail, how do you think? The model, the context of the question, how do you think it's mean? Now Ibrahim alayhi salam began with the style of parenting, the democratic parenting style, not authoritative in the for his children, his children. So this is the main thing. In my opinion, if you talk about TLC and also Ibrahim alayhi salam, this is the democratic style in the family. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andika. You remind me about Pak Alan's presentation, dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah. Equal dialogue between father and the children. What do you think if I slot you
Yes.
You agree?
Ah.
If it is from the God revelation, just do
Just
it.
do it.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give Alan
Okay.
for the. You have 5 questions actually.
I have 5 questions. I'll be quickly. 10 seconds per question. Look, you mentioned you are what you eat.
Yes.
You can see what I've eaten. Actually, you are not what you eat. In part, you're what your grandparents ate. Because when you think of epigenesis, if you've grown up, part of the problem of ill health, right? Non-communicable disease is also genetic. It has an epigenetic an oversight. And the oversight is really basically epigenetic. But your point is good, that the quality of what you eat, whether it's literally food or whether it's the food of knowledge,
Yes.
is so important. So I agree with you entirely that what can happen is the quality, we think about the physical food we eat,
Yeah.
but the food of life is really what's communicated to us in thought, evidence of value, and clear evidence of behaviour. And that's what, in a simple way, we've tried to think about in the TLC framework. Now, does that answer your question? Does it get close?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Then, the second one was really, and the thing is how to inculcate TLC is really where you're getting to. And it's really also assisting parents to know how to interact with their children in a way that is positive. And there's a lot of work that's done in our country around positive parenting programs. They're really, the Triple P program is fairly behavioural. There are others, parents as teachers, that really does go to more of the emotional dimensions. And so I think there's empirical evidence of how you can assist parents. But all of this is built upon extending and mobilising the strengths of parents. The comment came up about poverty. And poverty, I agree, if you can address poverty as a social policy problem, it's good. But poverty is often stereotyped. And in my experience, I've found that women living in poverty particularly, they would rather go without for themselves to make sure that their child had food. Yet, it's often stereotyped as poor people neglect their children. They only neglect when it gets to the point where their economic resources and their life pressures are so diminished in the case of economic resources and so increased in the source of life pressures and stresses that then you see negative behaviour. And typically the moderating variable in that is if there is family violence or if there is some circumstance within the family that makes it difficult to deliver that care. And that could be psychological problems, it could be drug and alcohol problems, or it could be another set of complex issues. Right, the question came up from Hans about the comment really, which is a good one, about populism and about radicalism. And my sense is the problem around when people talk about radical Islam or radical Christianity, they don't mean what you're talking about. They're talking about a caricaturization or a caricature of religion. It's not the essential elements of religion, and that's one of the things we tried to unpack in the longer paper. That it's the sense in which religion is used as an excuse. And it's not the heart of Islam, or the heart of Christianity, or the heart of Buddhism, or the heart of Judaism. So what you mean by radical religion, I agree with entirely. But radicalization is the appropriation of religion as an excuse for behavior which is really driven in its heart by hatred, revenge, and fear. And you know, I won't give a long lecture, but we can talk over a meal, which we'll do in the next 2 days. I think when you look at the cycle that unfolded from the insane acts in Christchurch by one of my compatriots, fellow Australian, and then resulted in a revenge attack and series of attacks in Sri Lanka, and then since then has been used as the excuse for other minor events or thwarted events. Populism's interesting because politicians should be sensitive to the beliefs and concerns and fears and issues that are central in the lives of the people for whom they work. But populism is something that's a long tradition where you take negatives like the fear of migration, the fear of multiculturalism, the fear of Islam, the fear of Christianity, and you then utilize that to mobilize ideologically political forces. And when you think about it, that's what the history, particularly of the modern world, has been, with the use of particular stereotypes, stigmatization, and vilification as a vehicle to really develop political power. Again, it's a caricature. It really is not the thing that populism should be. So we will agree to disagree, and I will define my terms a little bit more accurately, which I should have done. It's a great comment, and I think you're right, that moderate Islam is an attempt to put the adjective in front to counter what's put in front of it typically, which is radical Islam. But Islam itself, in my view, in my limited understanding, is not about that at all. It's about those core values that underpin the framework of TLC.
And I mean, if you use the word radicalization,
Yes.
you obscure the problem. I would not use this word. I would use the word misuse.
It's the misuse.
Yeah.
And the word I used in the paper,
Misuse.
I used the word caricature,
Yeah.
which I think is accurate. It's not a representation that is faithful to the original field.
And you see, the media use these words intentionally.
Yeah, I know.
Because our
To inflame.
correct language
right.
is
Yeah.
language which means nothing.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
right.
can bring people
Yeah.
to think, to exactly stereotype things.
That's right.
And that is a problem. And therefore,
Well,
I'm
this is
very
what-
careful with language.
That's exactly why the first L in learn is language. Because language is it. And as Peter said this morning, and as our paper says, what people are now doing is abandoning language, and they're using images and memes. And that's the way in which, so it completely loses any capacity to define the term, because it simply produces this. And, I hesitate to say it, but you think of what happened in the 1930s in Germany. A lot of this was powerfully conveyed through cartoons. And the same thing in the First World War, powerfully conveyed, the pictures of basically each side used these same ways of simplification. And this is where you do get really dangerous simplifications. Okay?
And we have today the same situation as in the 30s. You see,
Exactly.
the political establishment
Precisely.
in Germany did not give any answer to the real problems of the people.
That's right.
Hitler gave an answer. He gave a very stupid answer, but he gave an answer which everybody
And
could
that
and
is
the
what...
same thing we have today.
That's right.
Same thing.
That is populism.
Yeah.
That is
I
populism.
would not call this populism. I would call this the failure of the political establishment to take the concerns of little people serious. Because they don't know what little
That's
people
right.
feel.
That's right.
A German politician doesn't know what the cashier in the supermarket thinks and how he lives. He does not know it even.
It's
How
a
can he
discussion
plan
for
to
another
live?
day. But part of the problem is that what you do have is this separation between political
Yes, the gap
and
between the
popular
establishment
people.
and the people. And
That's
that's the
it.
problem.
Okay, Ibu Mufi, you asked a question about boarding schools and the way in which people are for a range of reasons, putting their children into boarding school early, and how does this really represent a problem in terms of weakening the influence of the family? And, you know, it goes to the Latin term, loco parentis, that, you know, in a sense, there are a whole lot of social systems like schools and preschools and boarding schools that stand in the place of the parent. So it then says you have to have policy and practice that really make sure that they're not doing things that are not in the best interest, pardon the double negative, not in the best interest of the children. And so I think you can have very high quality boarding schools. Our daughter attended a boarding school, but she didn't board there. She lived at home, but every girl was considered to be a boarder. And they had a lot of systems that enable parents to have a lot of contact with their children. And they also had a lot of systems that tried to make sure the values that they were teaching were congruent with the values of the family. It's not a perfect solution, but when you have both parents working, as Ibu Sukiyati talked about, you've got to find as a society solutions that provide effective alternative care for children, but that don't then erode the capacity of the family to exercise its value building and behavioural impacts on children. Okay, is that clear? Okay, and then Ibu Inobia? Ibu Amalia. Right, basically spoke about how we would use TLC. Do we use it? Are we using it? The question is no. The answer to that question is no. We're using parts of it. The part that we're using is the compassion part. And the way that we're doing that is we have a grant from an organisation that provides large-scale insurance for workers. And we're applying this to where workers have been injured and using it as a way to build compassion, self-compassion, and to block what happens, and I'll be quick about this. If you don't develop self-compassion, you develop a whole set of negative constructs in cognitively and emotionally. And the irony with human beings is things become internalized on the basis of experience, but they rapidly become projected or externalized. The next step in this research, we've started the work with the workers, is to look at the families. Because when someone suffers an injury, often there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of fear of the future. Those things become internalized and they rapidly become externalized to the family. They disturb and perturb the family system as a whole. So what we're doing is we're trying to leverage digital architecture to be able to deliver at scale compassion-focused approaches, not only to workers but to their families. And I think it's interesting, it's early days in the research, but it's seeking to get away from models of therapy that are one-to-one and to get to a point where we have approaches that can be used at scale in a society. And that's the aim. And the C is compassion, the A is action. So we're trying to do both of those things in the research that we're undertaking now, but to build solutions that are scalable. Because we'll never have enough psychologists to do it one-on-one. But we can get things that can assist people in a positive way, which it seems to me is using the digital world to good effect. Okay, then I had Mas Handika. The short answer is I think I wouldn't go for eclectic. You know, I think there are many strategies that people can have, but I'd go for authoritative too. Because when Diana Baumrand developed that typology of authoritarian, authoritative or democratic, and permissive, I think authoritarian and permissive are both dangerous. and it's the authoritative, the democratic, respectful relationships among men and women, and among men, women and children, is the heart of a positive approach to really assisting families to deal with the complexities of the world. The other thing I like is I'm unapologetically very much a fan of Winnicott, and Winnicott was the person who talked about the good enough parent. Because what we have now is the other problem. People are seeking perfection in parenting, and it's never going to be achieved. And if it was achieved, as Winnicott says, a perfect parent would be very damaging, because all that they would give is a model of something that is going to fuel an enormous amount of anxiety in children. And we see a rise in our country in depression and anxiety in children, and I think it is because children are now expected to be perfect. And they live in smaller families, smaller worlds of relationships in the family, and I think there's a lot of pressure on children. And so I would push every time for positive, authoritative parenting. That answers your question?
Yeah.
There's my 5. Thank you very much.
We still have 5 minutes. Please, Ibu Sukiati will give you 1 minute, and Ibu Naimah 1 minute, and then the Prophet Ibrahim 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you a lot, Prof. Hans. Yeah, Prof. Hans. I agree with you that actually so many social and cultural problems relating to rearing up the children at home in family. So, and I agree with you that the state must intervene the condition of the family, especially in say in the poor communities. But besides that, I think what we can do individually as individual and as a state, say institution, because I work in institutions, maybe we can give a training to give the parents capacity and knowledge how to do the parenting, maybe how to rear up their children at home. That I think that's what we can do. So, Andre, thank you a lot for your suggestion, and I think I will be. Actually, I already did some, but maybe we can later discuss, so you can give me more friends related to my business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I have two lovely questions from the Ibu Amalia and Ibu Andre. And the two questions is almost the same concerning the strategy or the method in teaching the values of trust and care in higher education in universities. Okay, let me show you my slide, this one. About the value education indicators. Yeah, because there must be the next ones. Yeah. Yeah. With the question almost the same. Yeah. My dearest Ibu Andri and Ibu Amalia, and answering to the methods in teaching learning the values of trust and care in higher education. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let me show you again the value education methods. Here, the first ones we can teach our students by giving trust. Yeah. Yeah. And the teacher can be as the role models of our students. And the third ones, we can give some exercise to our students by some discussion, so we can ask them to solve the problems concerning the PLC, so they can not just only practice in our classroom, but they can do more, not everywhere and anywhere.
So
And
problem-based learning. problem-based learning.
Problem-based learning. And what is it? And or by reliable sources. For example, what of the is it the honest lecturers, the honest people in their country, yeah, as their role model, or they can do the exercises by having a look at the reliable sources. And beside the form models, the last models, and it is of course the most difficult ones. Yeah, we must regulate the values of the LC in their daily activities, not just only in our campus, but in the society. Yeah, by doing the method in order to get the goals. So the values of TLC not just only in the form of knowing, not just only in the form of understanding, not just only in the form of skills, not just only in the form of internalizations, but in the form of characters, to make their characters, so they appreciate the values of TLC and their life, to be their characters.
Alhamdulillah.
Ya, ila Quran Al-Quran hunaka نوعان أولا ما يتعلق عن حوار dialog والثاني الجدل katakan debat
Argue.
وأما إبراهيم لا ما ديمقراطيك هل هناك الآية تدل على ذلك؟ عندما أمر إبراهيم ربه أن يذبح إسماعيل ماذا قال إبراهيم؟ إني أرى في المنام أذبحك فانظر ماذا ترى. فانظر ماذا ترى يدل على أنه يتكلم مع ابنه. إبراهيم يسأل عن أسأل وهو يرحم ابنه وابنه يكرم أباه ثم يجيب افعل ما تؤمر ستجدني إن شاء الله.
Thank you, Ban.
Excellent.
So
So it's yeah, but I can summarize. Okay. Thank you very much for the response from the 4 speakers. Really excellent. Professor Alan has already presented his and respond on what he called by the TLC framework, trust, learn, and care. The role of the family is really important, and it should be implemented from the family level to make the capable community and good nation, strong nation. And Ibu Sukiyati has already trying to propose a measurement, yeah, for the TLC within the families, working fathers and mothers. And Ibu Naimah remind us on yes, there is a legal foundation to implement the TLC within the university level. And finally, Pak Mudofar excellently give example of the role model who implement the TLC in the from the Abraham history, yeah? From the Quran, Nabi Ibrahim from the Quran, and he presented in Arabic. Well, thank you so much for your attention, and your response is really useful to enrich their papers in the future. The complete paper is here. If you like, just leave your email to me, and I will send you their material to you. Is it allowed to send your PowerPoint and papers in PDF? Okay.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, and 4 paper will be published in journal, related journal. Pak paper will be published shortly in the Win Sungarjogo International Journal of Islamic Civilization, so you can access it online. Yeah. Okay, let's give a big applause.
Terima kasih banyak, Pak Jarrett. He is the leader, the guru. And can I say to you, I want to say to the conference, saya senang sekali mendapat kesempatan mengikuti konferensi Aicis ini. Terima kasih banyak atas kesabaran Anda mendengar presentasi saya. Terima kasih.
See, only in 1 week he speak bahasa Indonesia. If he stay here more weeks.
This week bahasa Indonesia, next week
Arabic.
Inshallah.
All audience, let's have a picture together with all speakers. Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Foto. Maybe here, can you stand? Okay, some will sit here.
Kak, abis ini kita kesana aja. Bilang telepon aja biar jangan bubar. Kakak telepon ya. Siapa ya? Siapa namanya itu adik Reno? Iya. Si Allah banyak ya Titin. Makanya kami mana tinggal Titin aja nggak ke ujung Aicis. Kaki nih.
Ya, halo.
Operation International Operation Halal.
Ayo.
Bu Naimah minta tolong dimatiin tuh ya.
Foto biar jangan.
Ayo silakan.
Panjangan Pak, kecil.
Ya, yang lain berdiri.
Ya, speakernya di depan.
Ada yang mau foto di sini kameranya.
Pak Jarod, ini siapa yang ini? Iya.
Ini boleh dipindah ya, udah selesai. Mas minta tolong, itu dimatiin nanti. Minta tolong difotoin ya. Berapa kali? 1, 2, 3. Come on. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Nanti sama ini ya.
Oh iya Pak.
Sebentar sini ya. Sebentar sini ya.
Iya Pak.
One, two, three.
Right, we put the largest people in the middle.
1, 2, 3, same thing, okay?